What's up, Tribe Church? Good morning. We are excited to be with you today. Again, just at our homes. I know this is all a little different, but I feel like we're getting used to it. We're getting the hang of some things. So we're going to sing some songs this morning. We're going to worship together, and just wherever you're at, let's just enter into the gates of heaven together this morning. Amen. Let's go. Come on, if you know it, sing along with me, right? And he is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, and how he loves us so. And oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. Well, sing, he is jealous. And he is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. And oh, how he loves us. Come on, sing, he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Come on, sing, we are his portion. So we are his portion, and he is our prize. Drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. And grace is an ocean we're all sinking. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Oh, sing, he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves. Come on, sing this out. Yeah, he loves us. Oh,
mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. King of my heart, be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Oh, let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh,
'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are
good, you're good.
Oh,
You are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh,
you
are good, you're good.
Oh,
You're good,
never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good. Oh, 'cause you are good. Oh, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh.
We're brought here today by the love that Sarah and Davis have for each other.
I can't believe I get to marry him. We're perfectly compatible in every way.
Yeah, she just gets me, man.
Someone to talk to all night long.
Someone to talk to all night long.
Early morning jogs.
Sleeping in late.
We'll spend the holidays with my parents.
We'll spend the holidays with my parents.
We'll have one well-behaved daughter.
We'll have 4 or 5 little dudes running around.
He'll help me pay off my debt.
I should probably tell her about all my debt. Is that important? We'll share a bank account.
Obviously, we're gonna share a Facebook account.
Do I need to friend my in-laws?
Someone to do my laundry.
Someone to do my laundry.
Double income.
Stay-at-home dad.
Meal planning, of course.
Takeout.
The city.
The burbs.
Mission trip.
Ski trip.
Blue.
Red.
Cat.
Dog.
Fries.
Rings.
Potato.
Potato.
Minivan.
Motorcycle.
2 words. Finished basement.
2 words. Man cave.
He's so smart.
Do you think that birds wish that they had hands?
We're going to be so happy.
We'll be so happy. I'm gonna crush it at being a husband.
All right, good morning, everybody. We are starting our brand new series today called What Happy Couples Know.
It's true. And ladies, you're probably thinking, yes, finally a relationship series.
Men are thinking, great, a relationship series. Because men, we don't want to work on it, right? We just want it to work.
Right.
If you think about like a car, right? If we talk about a car, like when something breaks down on a car, right? Like guys, you're driving on a car and all of a sudden you start hearing a rumbling, right? You turn the radio down, you just want to hear that rumbling. Then it gets to the point where you're like, you hear that? Do you hear that rumbling? You hear it, right? You hear that rumbling.
Because you have to talk about it because there's something that's broken.
Yes, we have to talk about it because something that is broken. So you're just like, listen. And then eventually I got Carrie driving and I'm just constantly listening around, telling her, accelerate, slow down, something's wrong with the car, right? And it works that way in the same way as a relationship, right? Because, you know, there's something you can't talk about, or you can't fix the problem unless you address it, unless you talk about it.
Right, but I also feel like men sometimes treat it like a car. Like if I say I want to talk about the car, it's because there's a problem with the car. But that's not necessarily true in relationships.
Right.
Right. So relationships are not like cars.
They are not like cars because, and men, we have this connotation, right? Like, you know, if you're wanting to talk about the relationship, it means that something is broken. But it doesn't necessarily mean that something's broken. It just means that we need to talk about things.
Yeah, one of the most important things we can do in our relationships is talk about them. We do need to talk about them. And this, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I'm single, or I'm in a dating relationship, or I'm engaged, like, and you're thinking like, this stuff doesn't apply to me because I'm not married. I actually think this stuff applies doubly to you because you can go into your next relationship armed with the knowledge that you're going to learn throughout this series. And so it's really almost better for people who aren't currently in a relationship. It's really almost better for those people.
Right, yeah.
So if you are single, if you're engaged, or you're a newlywed, or you're dating, or you're a not so newlywed like us, there's going to be something for everyone in this series. Absolutely.
Also, if you're joining us today, you're going to be thinking to yourselves, man, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of Bible, right? This could be your first time joining us and you're thinking, man, like this church just doesn't talk about the Bible at all. And that's not true at all. We just did a 10-week series. Where we went through major stories with Jesus in the Bible.
The Gospels.
Yes.
All 4 of the Gospels.
Yeah, we spent 90 days in the Gospels together. We did a 10-week series, and it was awesome. And this is not that, though. So it doesn't mean there's not going to be any Bible, but like specifically today, it's going to be more relationship discussion. Obviously, Christ-centered, right?
Right,
faith-centered, but it's going to be more relationship discussion, and we'll get more into the Bible in the coming weeks, so do stick with us. But if you're looking for that deep spiritual thing, we have 10 weeks that you can go back and watch. And some of it is in a totally different online platform, right? Not just a live recording, but a video, high-quality recording you can go back and check. But we have more Bible for next week.
Absolutely. Each one of us has a box that we kind of carry around with us. And it's our box of hopes, dreams, and desires. And if you're single, you might not know what's in your box, or maybe you have a really good idea of what's in your box and that's why you're still single. Or if you're engaged, maybe you're kind of starting to talk about what's in that box. And if you're married, you should know what's in your spouse's box, but some of you don't. And that's part of the problem, that you don't know what's in your spouse's box of hopes and dreams and relationships. And so we have this box here that represents hopes, dreams, and relationships. And so desires.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not hopes, dreams, and relationships. Hopes, dreams, and desires. Yeah. And so one of the first things that goes in that box is money. Like we've got money
Because you may think, all right, so this is my expectation is that you're going to do the budget, right? We're gonna plan for our future. We're gonna save a bunch of our money,
Right.
And you may be thinking we're gonna blow right through that money. We don't want to save it. We don't need a budget.
Do you remember what they said at our marriage counseling when we were in marriage counseling?
I do.
Do you want to?
Yes, they asked us. They said, well, one of you typically is going to be good with money and the other one's not. So how the one who's good with money handle all the money? And we looked at each other and we're like, what if neither of us is good with money?
Like, what if that's not?
What if that's not a skill that either of us have? And so you have different expectations for how you're going to handle the money, right? What's mine is mine and what yours is mine.
Right, yeah. That's how it works, right?
Yes, right.
Because I'm in there.
We're going to share a bank account or maybe we're going to split a bank account. You each have different expectations, right?
Yep. Another big one is the house. This was a big one for me when we were in our dating and engaged and newly married. Was like, where are we going to live? Like, what town are we going to live in? And what's that going to look like? Like, are we going to own? Are we going to lease? Are we going to rent? Are we going to live we're going to live downtown in a flat? Are we going to live, in a suburb? Like, what kind of house? Actually, this is pretty close. This is kind of what I wanted. This looks a lot like our first house, only ours was blue. This one's pink. And so, yeah, that's an expectation that people have.
Also, expectations on who's going to do what around the house, like what chores you're going to do. These, by the way, are going for $1,000 on eBay. If you're interested.
I know, right? Such a valuable item.
It's amazing. But it's different expectations. Who's going to do the chores, right? You're like, I'm super down with vacuuming, but I'm definitely not going to do the dishes, and I'm not going to do the laundry.
Because that's what you're maybe like in your family. Like maybe like the mom was the one who did the vast majority of the cleaning, or maybe the dad was the one who did the cleaning or whatever. And so like how that's going to break down.
Right. You have different expectations on your vehicles. What kind of car you're going to have? You're going to have a sports car, right, where it's look really cool and awesome, or you're going to have like a minivan. Where everyone fits in the back. You could drive all the friends around, things like that.
And we didn't really nail the whole money thing, but we nailed the car thing. We are on the same page when it comes to cars. We're not really car people. Do you remember why I got you this car?
Our relationship was old enough to drive. Yes.
When we passed over our 16-year dating anniversary, I got it.
See, I just remember these things.
Ew. Another one is like, how many kids we're gonna have? Let's have some kids. Like, we're gonna have 2 kids. 3 kids? 4 kids?
No.
No, we're gonna take some kids out of the box. No. How many kids are you gonna have? Like, that's a big compromise for some couples.
Right.
Like, are you gonna have 1 kid?
We're gonna have 1 boy and 1 girl, or we're gonna have 2 girls, and then we're just gonna keep trying.
We're gonna keep trying, so we have a boy.
Long enough to get a basketball team, right?
Right. Yeah. Like
so you could field a whole team.
Yeah. That's a whole thing. Okay. What's another one? Ooh.
Time. How are you going to spend your time, right? How are you going to spend your free time? How are you going to spend your friend time, right? Your expectation may be, anytime we have free in the evenings, we're going to make sure we go and hang out with other people.
With my friends.
Yes, my friends.
My family.
And maybe your expectation is, no, anytime we have time free in the evening, we're going to stay home, we're going to watch a movie, we're going to order in. That does sound like me.
That does sound like you.
Calendar.
Yeah, like when we first got married, I was really generous. I was like, we're just gonna. All I want is to spend 3 holidays with my family, and then your family can have the rest of them. Like so.
Yeah, so generous of her.
I can have Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter.
Right.
And then you can have everything else.
I get Flag Day.
You get Super Bowl.
Yes.
You get Halloween.
Halloween, huge.
It's a special holiday. 4th of July, I like to go watch the fireworks with my family. So I guess I'll take that one.
You'll take that one too.
No, I'm just kidding. That's actually not true.
No.
When we were first married, we were really lucky because our families kind of celebrated holidays opposite each other. Matt's family was his brothers and sisters were all a lot younger, and so we would do Christmas morning with the younger kids, and then we'd go do Christmas afternoon with my family, and then and at the time your dad was an over-the-road truck driver, and so we celebrated Thanksgiving when we could, not necessarily. So it worked out really well for our family, but like other things were more complicated, like especially once children got into the mix.
Yeah.
Then things changed a little bit.
Travel?
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna travel all the time, and you're gonna go to other countries, or are you just gonna stay in Indiana and not go visit anywhere ever?
Do you think this is your passport or my passport?
I think it's your passport.
It is. It's my passport. It's my passport.
And
All right.
you know, men, what will your wife sleep in? We all have expectations about what your wife will sleep
My
in.
actual pajama shirt.
And then sometimes she wears a Pool Builders of Indiana shirt.
This is a really comfortable shirt.
Shout out to PBI.
Yeah, shout out to PBI. It's a really cozy, comfortable. It feels really nice for sleeping. So
Yes. And that's what men dream of. As they're getting married.
this right here.
Pool Builders of Indiana.
It.
Yeah.
A PBI shirt.
Yes. And then boxing gloves.
Yeah.
What does that represent?
I don't know. Wait,
Conflict.
oh, that's the wrong hand.
Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution,
Yeah.
like how we're gonna fight. So like we're gonna fight like my family did, right? Like we're just gonna kind of let it go and let everybody like calm down before we actually like sit down and talk about
Or
it.
maybe we're just gonna shout it out, right? We're gonna get it all out there, but we're gonna shout it out all at the same time to get
Right.
it resolved, to get
right.
it finished.
Like right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe guys are out the conflict resolution. Isn't that what sex is for?
Well, some women.
Or some women, right?
Who knows?
Right? How are you gonna
Yeah.
treat each other?
How are you going to treat each other? What are the things you're going to say to each other? That is going to impact our hopes and our dreams and our desires. We're going to be influenced by other relationships that we've seen, both in positive and in negative
Right.
ways. Maybe you're like, this is how my family did it, and it worked out really
Or
great.
just like someone that you were close to. And
Right,
you
a
knew.
neighbor, possibly like a pastor or a youth pastor, youth leader, something like that. You had somebody that you were really close to that you
Or
were
it could
like,
be like the opposite, like you were saying, like, you know, I don't want to be like that.
Right.
I want to change
Yeah.
everything about that.
And I think something that happens a lot for our new couples, our younger couples, and I don't necessarily mean like your age, but I mean like the age of your relationship, but like what you see on Instagram, what you see on Pinterest and on Facebook, like what the culture is kind of pushing in your face of what a relationship looks like.
Right, and it's in
so-
response to what you grew up in, right, or around. Because we're either trying to avoid something or you're trying to recreate something that you experience. And for each of us, it's actually really complicated, and it can be kind of emotional.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
like we said, maybe it wasn't your parents, maybe it's a neighbor or friend or older sibling. Even if you're trying to recreate something, or even if you're trying to avoid something, the truth is, in the middle of all of that is me. Right? It's you.
These are my hopes. These are my dreams. These are my desires. This is what I want
Right.
for myself.
Right.
Right.
It's all about you, right? Whether you're trying to avoid something or trying to create something great or recreate something great, you are the focus of everything.
Right, because it is. It's again, like when we have these hopes and dreams and desires, they're mine. And at some point,
Yeah, at some point in any relationship, whether you're dating and maybe you're engaged, maybe you're even maybe it's at the altar the moment you're getting married,
Right.
maybe it's when you get back from your honeymoon, maybe it's on the 1 year anniversary, right? At some point you take this box of hopes, dreams, and desires and you say, here.
so you're saying like this is my hopes and my dreams and my expectations, and your job is to make them come true.
Yes.
And then what that ends up feeling like to that other person is not hopes, dreams, and desires. It feels like expectations. It feels like a weight to that other person. It feels like a responsibility or a homework assignment. And for all of you who are out there homeschooling right now, you know how much homework assignments suck. Like,
And if they don't come through for you, you might be disappointed with them, because expectations are a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, right? We haven't got there yet. You haven't got there yet, but
Yeah.
you will eventually,
eventually,
right?
this is where we're headed. Is
Yeah.
towards like my hopes, my dreams, my desires, towards my expectations of how we're gonna fight, who's gonna clean what, where we're gonna spend the holidays, or how we're gonna arrange our calendar. Do we vacation in July? Do we do it in September? Like all of that is going to be affected there.
Even in the best relationships.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
Even the best fall down sometimes.
It's true.
Even the wrong words seem to rhyme. You somehow find that you and I collide,
And not in that good way.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when eyes collide, right? It's not you and I, it's your eye and my eye colliding together. And when we collide, we just swap boxes. We're like, here's my box, and then I'll take your box. I give you mine, you give me yours. And suddenly your hopes and dreams or desires are someone else's burden,
Right.
someone else's responsibility. And when the eyes collide, we do one of 5 things. And we're going to talk about 4 of them today. So 5 things, 4 of them today. The 5th is next week. The first thing that we do
Is we leave. We say, this is not what I bargained for. You have changed gears. You've changed lanes. You are not the person that I married. So I'm out of here. I can't. Or maybe the other person is saying, I can't carry your expectations. I can't meet your expectations. I'll never be able to meet this. I'm never going to be able to live up to what you want or what you want me to live up to. And they say, like, this is never going to be our reality. And so I'm out. I'm done. They leave. They pick up their box of hopes, dreams, and desires, and they cart it off to the next relationship.
Yeah, some of it is I don't want to live with like this pressure, and I don't want to live with like your disappointment. You know,
Right.
I'm out, and it could also be like, hey, I asked you to do all these things, and you're not doing it.
It's like you're not even trying.
You're not meeting all of my desires and expectations, right? Like you're
Right.
not doing. You're doing some of it, but most of it you're failing at.
Right.
And therefore, I'm going to go because
Right.
you can't do it. I'll find someone who can handle all of this nonsense.
Right.
And when you leave, you just pick up that box, right, of hopes, dreams, and desires, and you cart it off to the next relationship,
Yeah.
and you do the same thing. And
Right.
this is often, and we're not going to get into it, but this is often why people continually have multiple marriages,
Right.
because they continually do the same thing, and they continually find the same results. So first is we leave.
We leave. Second one is we win. In every relationship, there's generally a stronger personality.
Right. One person powers up and wins, essentially, right? They leverage the 4 C's to an unsatisfying relationship.
Convince, convict, control, and coerce. Those are the sort of 4 C's. If you're looking to like just destroy your marriage, those are the 4 things you can do. Convince, convict, coerce, and I forgot the last one. Control.
Yes,
Control.
Because you're like, that you convince, you're like, this is how I thought it was going to be. I don't want to be rude, but your box is like super sucks, and mine is the good box. Mine's got all the cool stuff in it, and my box is pretty much how the world works anyways. And you'll be happier if you just
get rid of your box.
Yeah, just throw that out. Toss your box out.
don't need your box.
We're going to do my box.
We're gonna do my box.
And aren't we always happier when we completely abandon who we are,
Right.
And who God created us to be? Doesn't that always make us happy?
And we conform to the image of our partner, or we conform to what our partner wants us to be. Yeah.
And then we convict them. We make them feel guilty.
Right.
Right? Oh, doing it your way, did that work out for your family? No. So we're not going to do it that way because that's a super bad way. And my way is awesome.
Right. And we control, and there are lots of different ways that we can control our partners. And we try to get them to do exactly what we think that they should do, whether or not that fits their personality,
Yeah.
their personal drive, the things that they're good at. But if it's like, well, in our family, growing up, my dad always took out the trash, and so that's something that you should do. Like,
Right.
that's not...
And at the end of the day, the winner is always happy, right? They're
Right.
getting their way, so they're pretty happy. We have, 2 people working out of the same box, and the other spouse just conforms to the will of the winner, of the
Right.
person who is strong. And that's the third one, is we conform.
We conform.
We become someone that we're not, to conform to someone who won't love us. Right? You're like, okay, so this is what you need from me. This is how you need me to be and how you need me to behave. And I'm going to do all those things, even though that's kind of not, who I am. And I'm going to be really into, travel, or I'm going to be really into owning a nice house or something, because that's what you want. And I want you to love me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. We abandon who we are in order to embrace what makes that other person happy, regardless of whether or not it actually works for us. When we do that, we're basically just conforming, and that can work for a while. It kind of brings the temperature down in the relationship. The tension is going to go down in the relationship, and it's almost like, I'm sorry. Like some people say things like, "Well, my parents weren't like super happy, but they weren't unhappy. Like they just kind of had it figured out. Like I'm going to do my part, you do your part. We're going to kind of live parallel to each other, but not like in sync with each other."
And at the end of the day, though, they lose respect for their partner. And their partner loses respect for them. Like when you're conforming, so to speak, it's like, well, that's not who you are, right? And so it's just like you slowly lose respect for each other because of that.
Well, it's like I'm doing my part, so I'm gonna make sure that I'm doing my part, but I'm also gonna make sure that you're doing your part, because we got to keep things kind of even. We got to make sure that we're not, one of us isn't getting more in the relationship than the other.
And we also, the next part is we compromise, and this is really the most common, and honestly, this is what most people think a marriage looks like. It looks like compromise. Maybe you saw this with your parents, right? Like you were saying, they weren't necessarily unhappy, but they weren't really happy either. They just sort of had it kind of figured out, right? They made it work, right?
The problem is that in a compromised marriage, there's a lot of scorekeeping. Like you get a night out with friends, which means now I am owed a night out with friends. Like it's your turn to empty the litter box, and so the next time it will be my turn to empty the litter box. Like you spent $300 on nonsense, so now I get to spend $300 on nonsense. And it just, or like, last year we were with your family for the holidays, and so this year we have to be with my family for the holidays. It's like, it involves a lot of scorekeeping. So if you're finding that there's a lot of scorekeeping in your marriage, it might be time to look at, to take a look at your marriage, to start talking about some of this stuff, about your hopes and your dreams and your desires and your expectations.
A compromised relationship really boils down to a low trust. It creates low trust. And when there's low trust in a relationship, there's low intimacy. And you cannot fully give yourself to someone like completely if you don't completely trust them.
You can't give yourself fully to someone if you don't have like a complete and total trust of that person. And if you're single, you're looking for the secret to like great sex and marriage or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with anything physical. It's all about intimacy, and intimacy is tied very closely to trust. Without intimacy, without that trust, there's no intimacy, and without intimacy, everybody's just a little bit on guard all the time. We're thinking about that scoreboard as much as we are anything else that we might be doing, and it's ultimately very unfulfilling.
Right. You can make it work. You can make it work. You've seen it happen, but it's fueled by a commitment to the wrong thing. It's fueled by a commitment to the relationship. And you've probably heard people say it, like, I'm committed to my marriage.
That sounds good on paper.
It does sound good. But nobody marries a marriage. Nobody dates a relationship. Nobody's engaged to a relationship, right? Like, to say you're committed to a marriage. I mean, the thing is like, I don't want Carrie to be committed to our marriage. And you hear that and you're like, but I don't. I want Carrie to be committed to me, right? I don't want our relationship to like de-evolve into I'm committed to my marriage. You could put anybody in this place here. I'm committed to that idea of marriage. It doesn't matter who's here, but I'm committed to that marriage, whatever that is. I want, and the thing is like, if you think about it, it still comes down to the same thing. I want my marriage to work. I want my relationship to work. I mean, because who's in the middle of that?
Me.
It's me. My marriage, my relationship, my reputation, my kids growing up with two parents in the home, right? It's all about me.
Yeah. Being for marriage is better than being against marriage, but wanting your marriage to be a good marriage is better than not wanting your marriage to be a good marriage. But there's something that is beyond that commitment to marriage. It needs to be a commitment to another person, because then it stops being about me and it starts being about you. And
right.
It starts being about us. We're going to talk about that a little bit more next week.
I mean, at the end of the day, this will work. Obviously, the way, and if that's all you get to is compromise, that's great. But
if you can have a long marriage,
it's not all that much fun, and it's not all that fulfilling. So when the eyes collide, we leave, we win, we conform, or we compromise. But no matter what, when they do collide, when the eyes collide, we loses. The fifth option is what happy couples know, and we're going to spend all of next week talking about that topic. It's so powerful and it's so amazing, and we're not going to tell you today.
Sorry.
For the next few minutes, we want to kind of help frame the problem in a way that you can understand.
Nothing we've said so far today is unique. It's nothing that you're going to find. I don't think it's anything earth-shattering. I don't think it's anything that you're not going to find in any other marriage series written by any other pastor or pastors. Because we're just talking about expectations and how that creates a debt-debtor relationship. When I give you my hopes and my dreams and my desires, they become your expectations. You now owe me. You are in debt to me. You owe me affection and attention, and you owe me to make the house look clean, or you owe me, the certain kind of car. You owe me kids. I know a lot of people get really...
You owe me taking care of the kids for a certain amount of time so I can do the things that I want to do.
Right. You owe me like a night out with my friends, and I owe you, and what creates that debt-debtor relationship. And that is not what God had in mind when he put man and woman together for the very first time back in the garden. It's because when it comes down to like, this is what you're supposed to do, because like that's what men are supposed to do, or that's what wives are supposed to do, it becomes ultimately very unfulfilling.
Right. And how much gratitude do you express to people who pay you what they owe you?
Right.
I mean, how much gratitude do you give someone who does what they're supposed to do? They do the thing that they're supposed to do. They meet the minimum requirement, the minimal amount of work. And we rarely express gratitude for what we've come to expect. When someone does exactly what they're supposed to do, we don't say thank you for that. You've done what you're supposed to do.
You've met the expectation.
Right, you've met the expectation. And that's the tricky part. In relationships and marriages, we slip into routines and we slip into roles, right? Not men and women roles, I'm saying, but there are certain things that each of you do. You do this and I do this, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good, right? People should have different roles. The problem is when you stop being grateful for the things that they always do.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right. Yeah, we don't say, wow, I'm surprised that you paid the bills this month, even though you've done that every month for the last 11, 12 years, or however many years you've been married. When we come to expect things, we stop being grateful we start being grateful for them. When we come to sort of expect those things to begin and to be done. And that's something that you can actually start today, is just being grateful for the things that your spouse does. You can be like, wow, I didn't expect you to do that.
But your spouse may be like, well, I do this literally every morning. I do this every morning.
Right. Like I know back in the day when people used to leave their houses, you used to make my lunch for me and my breakfast. Like every day you would make me a cup of tea and then you would put my lunch together for me. And I was always really, really grateful for that, because even though you did it every day, it's not like I was like, oh, today's the day he's not going to do it. But every day I was as grateful as I was the first day that you did that, because it made my morning easier, because I'm not a morning person at all. And so it just made my life easier. And I really think this is how you supercharge a healthy relationship. Gratitude is an indication that I haven't filled up this box with expectations, because a debt-debtor relationship actually eliminates the possibility of love.
Right, because if you owe me, you can't love me.
Right.
If I owe you flowers on Valentine's Day, all we're doing is bringing the scale back to zero. Right? Like you this is your expectation for me, and therefore, if you do that, we're still at zero. You've eliminated the possibility for the other person to truly love you, because love requires margin. Love does not do well in an environment full of expectations. It's almost impossible in that environment to recognize love, because expectations remove that margin necessary. It removes the margin for you to recognize and to appreciate what the other person is doing, because you're constantly just thinking you've done the minimum.
Yeah, you've got the you meet that minimum.
You can't even see what's happening.
Right. I think that's something I feel like you've always done really well, is exceeding my expectations for things. And the other thing that I think we've done well is not always being super consistent. Sometimes we do stuff for Valentine's Day, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do stuff for Christmas, sometimes we don't. And so it just keeps that, I don't know, it keeps it from it being an expectation.
Right.
Because it's okay when when it doesn't happen, and it's sort of surprising when it does. I don't know. That's kind
Right.
of a weird way.
And you may think, like, this is what my father always did, or this is what wives are supposed to do. It's what couples are supposed to do. But meeting the requirement eliminates the possibility for love to be recognized or expressed, because you've not created any margin for love to exist. You've just created this debtor relationship. And a box full of expectations undermines love in a relationship, because this feels like pressure. This feels like work every single day of the week, right? If I meet your expectation, if I do everything that you feel like you want from me, everything you expect from me, I'm at zero. I'm still at zero. I've not gone above the minimum. I'm still at zero. I can't do enough to make you feel like I love you. In fact, it doesn't feel like I ever do enough, right? Because there's always something more that you're expecting, because when you meet someone's expectations, guess what? Their expectations change. And then they get higher. They're like, okay, great. Now that you've given me flowers every year on Valentine's Day, now I also want flowers and chocolate. Now I want flowers, chocolate, and jewelry. Now I want, and the expectation, you're not like this at all.
I know.
You've never asked me about jewelry ever.
I was just thinking about your Valentine's Day thing that you did, where you told the story of, like, the Insta story that you did. Where
Oh,
you
yeah,
told
yeah.
You should check that out. Sorry, that was just what I was thinking about during that time. And you don't have to live that way. And we can help, because we know something that happy couples know. And we're going to tell you next week.
But here's a couple of questions for you to think about for next week. A little bit of homework. What should we do with our hopes, dreams, and desires, right? Do we just pretend not to have them? Do we just ignore them? We just take, we're just like, all right, well, we don't need that. We just toss calendar. Well, who cares, right? Like, these are good things in this box. These are all good things. Some of these things stem from the fact that you bear the image of God, right?
But I think that's what we do, is we pretend like they don't exist, or we ignore them, or we lie to ourselves. We conform to the way that our spouse wants us to be, or the way that we feel like we should be. And I think the short answer is you keep them in the box. You don't throw them on the ground.
Okay.
You keep them in the box, and you acknowledge that you have a God-sized hole in your life. And I think that a lot of people, they like to walk around sort of pretending or acting like they don't have a God-sized hole in their life. And the reality of the situation is that we all do. And you are a great spouse. Like, you're an amazing spouse. I'm saying this to you.
Okay.
Not
Thank
like
you.
it's not hypothetical. Like, you're a great spouse. But even as great of a spouse you are, and as good at being my spouse as you are never going to be big enough to fill that God-sized hole. He's not. And the same is true of me. I'm never going to be big enough to fill the God-sized hole in your life. And so we need to stop looking to our spouses to fill those God-sized places in our life, because they can't do it. They weren't designed to do that. They weren't designed to hold our hopes and our dreams and our desires. God was designed to hold our hopes and our dreams and our desires. And so I think when we start looking to our spouse to fulfill the things that only God can fulfill in our lives, I think we are going to find ourselves very, very unhappy and unfulfilled in our lives and in our marriages.
Right. And how do we do that? I think the short answer to that question is the correct answer to this next question. This next question is probably going to bother you, because you know the answer to the question, and it's something that I think happy couples know. And this is not intuitive. It may make you run for the hills, in fact. The best way to keep your hopes, dreams, and desires in the box, out of the expectations box and into just the hopes, dreams, and desires box, is to ask this question: what do they owe you?
What does your spouse owe you?
Right. What does your spouse owe you, or any kind of relationship? Truthfully,
it's true.
What do they owe you? And I think happy couples really know the answer to this question. Happy couples know they owe each other everything, but they are due nothing in return, which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
But I owe you everything, and you owe me nothing. And there's something that happy couples know, right, that doesn't make any sense. And if you know happy couples,
you know that they don't make any sense.
right,
they're going through a really hard time and yet they're still happy, or they're not turning on each other. They're not especially wealthy. Maybe they're not in great financial shape, but they're still happy. I think we nail that one on,
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Some of them have a lot of kids, or they have no kids, but they're still really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And they live every day, though, as they owe each other everything, and they don't expect anything in return. And for happy Christian couples take their cue from Jesus' greatest commandment. At the end of his ministry, Jesus drilled 600 or so Jewish commands down to one command. And you preached about this.
I sure did.
We're going to talk about it next week a little bit.
You're right. Love as I have loved you, so you are to love one another. That's if you're wanting to go back, that's week 9 of the Follow Me series. And Jesus did such a good job, like, loving the disciples well. And then as he was leaving, right before he was crucified, that's one of the last things he said to them, was that they were to love one another as he had loved them. And Paul takes Jesus' overarching command and applies it to all relationships, into marriage and into parenting and children, and even with our own parents. And here's what he says in Ephesians 5:2. It says, "Walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us." And so in every relationship, we can take our cue from our Savior.
And I think when Christian couples do this well, marriage begins to look like a submission competition, a race to the back of the line. And it sounds miserable, which is why so few people actually try it, but it's one of the few things that happy couples know. And we'll pick it up there next week, but you have two pieces of homework, thought homework. And we encourage you not to talk about the sermon today. So you may be listening to this and you're hearing some of this, and
Maybe they've paused it. And
right, you're like,
hey.
right, or you're like, hey, this is great because they said something and that's so you, and it's super annoying. So don't talk about it today.
Nudging each other.
But the first thing is, what's in your box? What's in your box?
Yeah, one of the reasons we apply pressure to our significant other is because maybe we don't actually know what's in our boxes. It's not clear. Or if you're single, like, this is a great opportunity. Or if you're engaged or just dating or whatever, you want to reflect on this over the next week. Maybe even write it down.
Right. And are you expecting someone to carry it around for you? Have you handed it off to someone else? Is somebody living with extra weight and extra pressure because of the expectations that you've given them? The expectations they were never designed to live with. Mm-hmm. Those are your two pieces of homework. Maybe write them down, think about them, talk about them with each other, just not today. And then next week we'll dive further into what happy couples know. They're your responsibility to make them come true.
This is what I always dreamed like it was going to be. This is sorry, this box is heavier than it looks. Let's push the boxes together, and then I'll turn it around as I put it down.
Okay.
I'm gonna start that over.
Sorry, because you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like you.
Thank you. See, I told you we didn't need to do any of that.
Right. Let me make sure this worked out.
Ah.